Award, your critically acclaimed podcast award winner from the Hamas Free Press.
It is. That's to me, and it's ironic that the first award I won was Best Podcaster in Jackson from the Jackson Free Press. Of course, it was 2020, so I couldn't do my acceptance speech because trust me, that I have one planned.
I bet you did.
I was going to burn the boats, as they say, and didn't get to do it. So they said, we're doing virtual. So I sent them my virtual rant in, and they never played it, of course.
Of course not.
But it's still in my intro to the show on the radio station now. It's like award-winning podcast. I'm never going to let that go. I can win a Grammy, and I'm still going to leave that in there.
Absolutely, as you should.
To me, that one matters because that was voted on by people. I didn't ask for anybody to vote, and the people of Jackson voted that in when they got given the options. Because I've always kind of looked back at those Jackson Free Press Awards, and God bless people that win. Everybody has a different method, begging for people to vote, getting their friends to, whatever. I respect all that. Getting people to do anything is hard, but it just meant a little more to me personally to not ask anybody to do it and won the thing.
Yeah.
And especially from somebody I consider an enemy, being the Jackson Free Press.
Exactly.
So I do have to eat my words a little bit. I've always said those things were rigged, and I know if I won, it wasn't rigged.
Yeah. I don't know that they're your biggest fans, Clay. No. I don't think they are.
No. Donna Ladd could fall dead right now. I'm on fire, and I wouldn't piss on her.
Look, I feel you. I feel you there. I feel the same way. You said something. I guess
they're the Mississippi Free Press now, right?
I still call them the Hamas Free Press.
Mississippi Free Press, the leaders of the rainbow supremacy, that whole bunch.
Alphabet Mafia.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah. You said something this morning on the show, and I didn't know about this. You had not told me about this yet, but you have been asked to be a part of a committee?
What are we talking about?
At the Capitol or
No, the Save Jackson committee. Fred's on that.
Okay.
On that. They said they may ask me for some input here and there, but no, I'm not on that. I wish. That's actually for elected officials.
Speaking of Save Jackson, that's where all of this originated. You started a platform called Save Jackson, Save JXN.
Yep.
And some people took you very literally, and you get a lot of hate for that. You get a lot of hate from people who say you really don't want to save Jackson.
I don't.
So tell us how that came about, why the name, why Save Jackson, and why did that take off the way that it did?
I think there was a appetite for people telling the truth. There's so many people, and I still lived in Jackson until 3 years ago. I've been doing this for 5-6 years now. I was living in Jackson and working on Highway 80 at Watkins Auto Sales right across the street from the Metro, the old East Ford. I was in the thick of it every day. Worked there for 3 years. One day during my lunch break, I got bored and I rode across the street to the Metro. It was slow, wasn't tax time or nothing. Rode across the street to the Metro, so I'm just gonna ride over there. And it was such a barren wasteland. It was it was neat.
Is that when the water department was?
Yeah, the water department was there. There was actually still a thing or two over there, but for the most part, especially the backside of it, was just a barren wasteland. And we just grew up on that side of town. You got a ton of memories with the Metro Center, El Chico, spending the night at Bebop in the parking lot for concert tickets, going to the mall, just all that fun stuff. So I just started taking some pictures. I had a Facebook page left over from a bygone era when I had nightclubs, and I had changed the name of it to Jackson Miss Promo, JXNMS Promo. And I just did like free promotion for businesses friends that had businesses. I just shared their stuff for free, just supporting, it was something to do. Because I've always been a promoter through the nightclubs, the concerts, and I just always enjoyed promoting stuff, whether it's concerts, businesses, whatever. And I wasn't doing anything with it. It kind of ran its course, and I posted those pictures there. I was like, we'll just post them here. And if it get lucky, it'll go viral. I'll get some likes out of it. Crap, it worked. And what I call locally viral. It got shared 3,000 or 4,000 times. And I was like, okay, people like this kind of content. I can do this. When was
this? What year was this?
This would have been late 18, 19, somewhere in there. Probably let's say 19. So no, I got married in 19. So it was a year or so. I wasn't married yet when I started it. So it would have been 18-ish, maybe late 17, actually. Yeah, so it's been doing a little bit longer than I thought I had. So I started that page in 2015, but not as what it was. And it sat dormant for a couple of years, so I figured out something to do with it. And so then the next thing up was, I said, okay, well, that people find that interesting. I bet they'll find all of the old, I know where every old nightclub and bar in Jackson used to be, what it used to be, what it is now. I just have this this useless knowledge in my head. I can take you on a closed bar tour of the central Mississippi area and tell you what every building used to be or where everyone was, at least up to the last few years anyway.
Yeah.
Let's say up to 2020. So that was next. I took a picture of everything as it currently existed versus how it used to look.
Yeah.
And then I would list what it was on each picture. And man, that went nuclear viral because about 50 pictures, 60 pictures, and every picture had a story under it for all the different comments and stuff. I was like, well, we should probably change the name of the page because Jack Smith's promo doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought about all the empty buildings and stuff, and I would like to see them saved and just not all burned to the ground and wasted and just a wasteland of empty buildings. So I said, why don't we save JXN? Because I still use the JXN, which we had started using back in the nightclub days. The first hashtag I remember using was JXNMS or Run JXN, stuff like that. I don't take credit for creating the JXN. I think that was actually the abbreviation for the airport at one point, like JXN INTL or something like that. And Cheney, the t-shirt guy, he started making these shirts that said Run JXN, like the Run DMC shirt. So I kind of wanted to spoof that a little bit. So I was like, save JXN. Man, I took the old Sun and Sand. That wasn't the original logo, the Sun and Sand. I actually just had an original logo I had done on Fiverr for like $10, just so I'd have a logo. And because everybody used to comment, do you even live here? Do you even live here? So it was like save JXN, and then under it was like, do you even live here? Was the catchphrase.
Do you even have a job?
Yeah, I get that a lot too. I'm like, well, I don't know. I made 6 figures last year. You tell me if I have a job, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of always my response to those idiots that work for Chalkway. Bet you I made more than you did.
Exactly.
And you know, IRS, I'm kidding. I didn't make 6 figures last year. The business did. The business did. I didn't. Anyway, the LLC did.
You know they're listening.
No, 100%. Them and the Department of Revenue. So at some point I changed it to Save Jackson and started doing that and just more and more urban exploration. I said, well, how do you make money doing this? I just didn't want to miss an opportunity if there was a way to make money doing it.
Right.
It wasn't like I set out to make money doing it. I had a career. I've been in the car business for 13 years. Was running one of the biggest buy here, pay here dealerships in town, and I reached really big highs at corporate stores. And money's always a problem, right? There's never enough. The more you make, the more you need. Yeah. Because the more you spend. So I never want to say it ain't about money because it's always about money at the end of the day. But I loved what I was doing, and I was like, well, hey, if we can also monetize this, great. And I started digging into it, and the way you really monetized on social media at that time was it had to be videos. And so I started doing a ton of research on videos and how do we figure out a way to do these. So I had to learn, like Daniel here had to learn how to do everything, you know?
Yeah.
And not taking any credit for Daniel's success, but there wasn't like, he leaned into me and I was able to share some stuff with him and he took it and ran with it. I didn't have anybody to lean into when I started this. I'm not saying that to pat
real quick
on the back.
I would not have gotten a start in podcasting and learned that this is something I loved without Clay Edwards. I'm going to be very clear about that. I love it. So I appreciate you, man.
I want that to be my legacy, is helping people get started doing this. I might not ever be number one doing this, but I want somebody
I think you kind of are number one around here doing this.
I don't know. I would never say that, but I want.
Well, I'll say it for you. You are number one around here doing this for sure.
Well, I want my legacy to be getting other people started and, being the teacher. Because I know, like, when I was in the car business, the guys that took the time, the veterans, the sales managers that took the time to work with me and help me get better at what I did, those are the guys that had the longest, healthiest careers. And those are the ones that could, if something happened, they did lose their job, they weren't without a job for 5 minutes. Before they pulled off the lot, they had another job. And I was like, well, if I ever get that opportunity to be that guy for somebody in something, and it wasn't going to be the car business because I didn't like it. That was work. That old saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I worked every day that 13 years I was in the car business. So back to the video stuff. So I started researching, watched a bazillion hours of YouTube, and you go down these rabbit holes and you start thinking too, well, I can't do it if I don't have this equipment, if I don't have this equipment, or this is the piece of gear everybody uses. If I don't have that, I might as well not even do this. And So spent a bunch of money on, and having to learn how to edit videos and equipment and dash cams and this,
some
that, and the
some
other.
of it ended up in a bathtub.
And we can definitely talk about that. And keep in mind that at this time, nobody knew this was Clay Edwards doing this.
Mm-hmm. You were like anonymous.
I was anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah,
this was before I knew you. So
for like the first 2 years, a couple people kind of knew or assumed, and those are the people I still call out to this day on the radio. Yeah, those are the people I still call out on the radio this day because they were like, Clay Edwards is a racist for posting pictures of empty buildings. You know, that's where the whole positive solutions thing came from. Was if you ain't got a positive solution, keep your mouth shut. That's that y'all's positive solutions got us into this, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to make some tough decisions here. And so I started doing the videos. My first YouTube video went viral locally. When I say viral locally, I never experienced real virality until TikTok, when you start getting into the millions of stuff. But that's been cool. I talked to Sean about this a good bit. You know, it's unique when it's one thing for an urban exploration video to get a couple 100,000 views. It's another thing when it's your face and a thought coming out of your mouth, and that gets 1 million views, because that just feels cool.
Yeah,
you know, because that's me versus a city, a barren wasteland.
Yeah.
So we started doing the videos, and COVID hit. Oh, sorry. The first video did like 50,000 views, went viral locally, like overnight. The first one out the box. So, you know, talk about getting that drug in your vein.
And
that first hit, I was hooked. I'm like, what else can we do videos about? And, you know, at the time, my fiance, soon to be wife, ex-wife, she was very supportive of all this. She enjoyed doing all of it. So it was actually
I've gone back and watched some of the first ones, and she's in the car with you, and y'all are riding around and your talking, video. Yeah.
And still nobody knows it's us, but I'm narrating these videos, and I didn't have a well-known voice at that time. So it was easier to kind of hide behind the camera, because I just thought it was easier to do it, given the race dynamics of Jackson, being a white guy, talking, you know, showing all this bad stuff. It was just easier if they didn't know who it was. And I was working at a car dealership that deals with 95% black clientele. You know, and I just know the dynamics of it all. So I thought it'd be easier if it wasn't me.
Yeah.
And so COVID hits, you know, we're doing all these videos and all that. And I kind of fumbled through that a little bit. And finally I was on the back porch one night. No, my first viral vlog was in my car. It was when the toilet paper shortage hit. And I actually still started a separate personal YouTube page for this. I still wasn't quite Save Jackson yet, or the face of Save Jackson. I stuck my dash cam on and did this rant, like a 3-minute rant about, is toilet paper the cure for COVID or something, because they're hiding it from us. And I guess that would have been mid to late March at that point of 2020, because COVID hit that spring break week. I think anybody with kids remembers that specifically.
Oh, absolutely. We moved into a new house. I had a 6-month-old, and we couldn't go outside because they were digging up the grass and planting new grass. So they didn't go back to school. We couldn't go outside, and I have 5 kids, one being 6 months old. I'll tell you what, liquor stores have never been more essential than they were in that time of my life.
I gained 50 pounds in 2020, drinking a pint of Fireball and a 6-pack of Andy-Gator every night. That was during the week. They don't even count the shenanigans on the weekends, but it's like, oh man. So a lot of my original content was me drunk, which in hindsight you regret, but I said, so it got me used to saying crazy stuff, and you wake up the next day and regret it. But I learned how to navigate those minefields of, you know, because people were getting canceled so easily at that time. So I don't even remember the first video I did. I think the first video on Save Jackson that was my face, it was when the face mask stuff had really blown up. And I was on my back porch one night, and I got
your deck. You have a deck?
No, unfortunately not. It was actually under a deck though. The deck's the balcony, and then under it was a 2-story house. So
I know you love a deck.
Yep. What? I love decks.
He loves decks.
I love decks. I think everybody should have a deck built. Not a deck. And I get the puns. Anyway, so I was out on the patio one night, and I had my grandmother sent over some N95 mask. And God bless her, you know. I mean, she's 80.
Is this the one that works out in the garden and plants all the food?
Still alive. Stays busy every day. Never spent a night in the hospital. I know I'm jinxing her right now, but she's, in my entire adult life, she's never spent a night in the hospital, to the best of my knowledge. And she has to have a little help moving around, driving and stuff now, but she's there. She's almost 90 now. So She sent over some masks, and I was like, I'm not wearing a mask. I'd order some of those face, like windshields, like people kind of wear around their neck and pull up. I was like, we're probably going to end up needing these, and I'd rather wear that than a mask.
Well, especially you, because you've talked about your hearing loss and how you need to see people's mouth movements and how they're saying words to even kind of hear a lot of things. So I'm sure that was even more difficult for you than most people.
Yeah, because I'm deaf, completely deaf. I have a dead ear. My right ear's a dead ear. So I either had to look like towards you with my ear or be looking straight ahead anyway. Like if you're on my right side, it's a miserable conversation because I'm having to turn around the whole time and whatnot. So I was just like, I'm not doing the mask. And I got out there, and I think they were Chalkway had started a mask mandate in the city. I don't remember the exact of it all, but I burned a face mask on camera. I caught it on fire. It looks like I'm burning an armadillo. I still got the pictures. I got the video somewhere. It doesn't look like a face mask, but it was an N95, but I just caught it on fire.
We burned a whole pile of them in my backyard.
Yeah. I was like, this is a sacrificial lamb. And I remember walking in the grocery store that week, and I was like, I ain't wearing a damn mask. This was early on in it at that point. But you realize by that point, people aren't falling out dead in the streets like the propaganda videos from China. And I don't know. That's when it kind of started. And the guy named Napoleon Edwards, the cipher voice, he was very popular on the internet at the time, kind of uncovering Jackson stuff, shenanigans. And, I enjoyed watching his stuff early on. And he had a radio show, like a 45-minute show in the mornings on a little local radio station out in North Jackson, right there at Briarwood. And he reached out to me and said, hey, bro, you ought to come on my radio show one day. And I'd never done that before. And I went and did an episode with him and chopped it up for a minute. And then he asked me would I fill in for him one day. And I had no idea what I was going to talk about. Thought of talking for 45 straight minutes with nobody talking back to you at that time seemed
scary.
Alien. I mean, it's very intimidating, and it's still intimidating to go do 2 hours of radio by myself. It's like, what am I going to talk about? But you find your things and go on. So I just jumped into why Jackson will never get a new arena or football stadium. And with an overwhelmingly majority audience that he had, they didn't like that. They
of course not.
What do you mean, JS? You don't need a new stadium, a new dome football stadium. Like, what? They don't. You don't sell out the one you have. You don't need a new one. But that neither here nor there. The bug bit me, and me and him started doing a 2-hour show every Sunday. We had to pay to be on the radio at this point. It was $200. It was $100 an hour. So me and him split it, paid $100 an hour. We weren't podcasting or nothing. We just both set our cell phones up in front of us because we both had big social media platforms. So we would stream live to our pages. And I don't know if anybody was listening on the radio, to be honest, but we had these huge audiences on our Facebook pages. And at that point, I was working 7 days a week, if you count doing that show on Sundays. And I think we just both needed a day off. It was summertime also at that point. It was summer of 2020 because the George Floyd stuff
your
happened.
favorite time of history.
The George Floyd stuff happened Memorial Day weekend, right?
Yeah.
Was it Memorial Day, June, early? It was in the front of summer, not the back, right? Or was it Labor Day weekend?
That would be.
Let's see.
Labor Day's in September, right?
When did George Floyd die? May, so it was Memorial Day. And I was a little slow to the party on that. I think most people were, unless you were plugged into Black culture at that time. So it was really like the next week, which I think would have been Memorial Day, because it was when the riots and all hell broke loose. And I remember him and I doing a show, and again, I wasn't that plugged into it. I knew another Black dude got killed by cops. I know how this story goes. They blame it on the cops, and it's usually end up their fault because they end up resisting arrest or whatever the case may be. 9 times out of 10, not every time, but 9 times out of 10, I would say. So I just didn't pay it much mind. It was in Minnesota. Why do I care? We were doing a show that Sunday, and that was the hot topic. And he agreed at the time that that dude effed around and found out. And then of course couldn't find out. We know everything we know, and I don't know. That was like the fuse that got lit that day, and it was where a lot of Black Jackson really decided they didn't like me.
Yeah,
because they needed to be a bad guy.
You were going to be it.
I was going to be it locally. I was going to be the face of that locally, and I welcomed it. I like being the bad guy, and they tried to get me fired. They showed it in my job. I mean, all kind of stuff. And for me, though, that's just all gas, no breaks time. It's like when you tell me not to.
It's going to make you want to do it more.
No, don't. And I don't know. That's kind of how it all. And then I started selling some T-shirts, and I'm giving the Cliff Notes version of this. I can drag it out. I've done it on here before, but I did some T-shirts, and 2 guys that I'd considered friends, and they were just T-shirts that said Save Jackson. It wasn't nothing crazy, just my logo.
Yeah.
And Brad Kamikaze Franklin, I talk about him a good bit, former rapper, was with David Banner, had the Crooked Letters group, and DJ, what was his name? I'll remember in a minute. He's from Chicago, but he's here now. Anyway, basically said they weren't going to allow me to make no money selling shirts. That wasn't going to make no money talking about Jackson like I did, and they weren't going to let me make any money selling shirts, and basically told me to stop or quit or whatever. I was like, no, dog. That ain't how this is going to work.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that initially figured out Save Jackson with me and was telling people I was a racist. These are guys I grew up with and did concerts with and promoted events with at my clubs and, called friends, at least business friends. And, at that point I was just like, and it just kept going. And me and Napoleon quit doing that radio show. And that's when I started the Save Jackson podcast with me and my ex-wife. We just thought, all right, well, podcast seems like the thing to do now. Let's try that and kind of evolve into that platform. And I was like, I think I need to be on radio also to help promote the podcast. And by the way, y'all make sure you go check out Lindsey's audio only version of this show. So if you can't catch the live stream, just go to iTunes or Apple and Spotify and all that and search Raising Liberty and hit subscribe. You need one platform to promote another.
Yeah.
I started doing that and ended up on WYAB. I searched.
Did you know Kim Wade already, or
me and Kim Wade go back to the nightclub days?
Okay,
but I didn't even know Kim Wade was on WYAB. I wasn't listening. I just knew Super Talk as far as conservative talk radio. So I Googled, and I knew I wasn't going to get on there. So I Googled conservative talk radio, Jackson, Mississippi, and WYAB pops up, and I emailed the info line and was like, "Can I buy an hour? Is there an hour available?" Matt calls me, and I started buying 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings, and it was football season, college football, and ended up being the lead-in show to the LSU football, because we're the home of LSU football. Well, actually, believe it or not, a few people are listening to LSU football up here. And I guess he started getting a response from that hour. It was costing me $100, but it was ad-free. Now I could sell it and promote ads within the show, but it was an uninterrupted hour. And I don't know, it took off, and then it turned into, well, would you be interested in doing Mondays, 1 hour, a Monday live? And then it turned into Tuesdays, and then it turned into, would add a day and an hour, add a day and an hour. It took 2 years. I mean, it was less than 2 years ago when it went to 2 full hours a day. And
when I met you, you were 1 hour a day most days.
2 hours on Monday and Tuesday, and then the rest of the week was 1 hour. And now it finally, when Jim retired, I got the next hour.
Yeah.
But it was a growing process, which hindsight's 2020. I'm really glad, because I was not ready to do. I couldn't have done 2 hours out the box a day. I would have had a co-host, and I don't really. I play well with others when I'm the alpha.
Yeah.
Undisputed alpha. But I just know me.
Yeah.
And I understand, and I know that, and I don't put myself in a situation where the show is ever going to be Clay and whoever, or I'm a part of a team full time, and that is my main gig. Now I would do that as a side thing, but like I need my thing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been my thing if I'd had to start with somebody else, because I want creative control of whatever I do. And I'd done enough stuff at that point to know that I was like the B when I was I was the other guy when I was doing the show with Napoleon, and I didn't like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can completely see that. And he's done some effing around and finding out since then.
Yeah. Allegedly. He ain't been found guilty yet, but he's in jail for, Juicy got him wolfed, and he killed a dude over some girl that was sleeping with somebody else, allegedly again. But they think enough of him doing it that they've kept him in jail for going on 3 years now. So.
Yeah. So when we first met, it was around the time that Philip Gunn, who was the Speaker of the House in Mississippi, made some comments about a third group. And those comments were kind of derogatory about a group of people who didn't want to take a vaccine.
Didn't want to wear masks. Didn't want to meet them in the middle at all.
Had me fired up. And then I found out he was coming on your radio show. So I tuned in. And I was mad at you that day. I was so mad at you that day. It's like, Clay, come on.
That's my one regret is I was still green, and a friend hooked that up. And I felt like if I had attacked Philip, it was going to look bad on my buddy who was a legislator.
Completely get that.
Hindsight, what I should have said was no. I'm just not going to do it if I can't call them out on this stuff. But being green at the time, I thought it was a good opportunity to talk to the Speaker of the House. And I mean, it was. A lot of people listened, and I don't think I lost any listeners because of it. But
no, actually, no, I think you gained listeners because
Yeah.
I did not listen to your show until that point. Now, I knew Mike Madison and Jameson Haygood from school board meetings and showing up at the school boards. But that's when I started listening to your show. And then I started to text you and say, well, this is going on and this is going on. And then we became fast friends because we care about the same issues, so many of the same issues. But I think that interview really was a turning point almost in your career as a radio show host.
I think so, because it put me on a level playing field with some of the bigger names, and it showed that the little independent station, I don't want to take nothing away from what the other guys are doing. Everybody's got their thing over there.
Right.
But at least for my show, out of a little independent radio station without any state funding, no one will take a penny of taxpayer dollars. We can't be bought, swayed, any of that. And I didn't really appreciate that early on, and now I do.
Yeah.
We charge politicians that are come on the show, on the radio station, when they're running for office. Once they're sitting and they're not in an election cycle, they can come on anytime. But if they're coming on as a campaigning politician, we charge them to come on, where other stations don't, because that's what they kind of feed off of. And also, I get lumped in being conservative talk, and for a lack of a better term, it's conservative talk. But what it is to me is it's a news reaction show. I react to the news, and the news around here is Democrats behaving badly.
Yeah.
And so that's what I talk about.
Exactly.
And there's national stuff that we hit. I mean, I guess at the core, it's a conservative talk radio show because I'm a conservative, but there's days I question that.
I get that completely.
As far as like a quote unquote Republican, I think
and
conservative and Republican are two different things.
For sure. And there are times I disagree with you. And I think that's made our friendship even stronger, though, because we're able to talk about the things we disagree on and not want to kill each other or not send death threats or not. Because I mean, I've gotten my fair share of death threats. I know you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of it. I used to talk about it more often. It used to get under my skin, but I've gotten really thick skin through it all now. Like I still get a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of people who have just figured out they're not going to sway me. I don't get as much as I used to. Now TikTok, random stuff on there when something goes nationally viral, I got all kind of crazy stuff, but I don't even rarely do I open up the messages there unless I'm in the app and I see the notification pop up, because I don't have the notifications on any of my social media other than like Facebook Messenger. I open it up enough. I don't need a notification every time it dings.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you had this one guy I said this earlier, but he even made a whole account about, does Clay have a job? And so every day he would post, you don't have a job. Does Clay have a job today?
Fat, what's his name? His name eludes me, but he works for the mayor. He runs the social media for the city of Jackson.
Gosh, is that who it is that did that? Yeah. Then there was the gay guy that made all of those profiles and had the naked picture.
Yeah. I was not even say his name. He's like Beetlejuice. You say his name 3 times and he appears.
Is he still around? Is he still?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know where he is. He's not in my hair right now.
Then there was Thomas, your arch nemesis. I think he must be in jail or something.
They're dead. We had a fake funeral for him on the radio show one time. Then he called in a few weeks later
from a new number, of course.
Yeah, we've had some interesting enemies along the way for sure.
So, okay, the big question: can Jackson be saved?
No. I mean, parts of Jackson can thrive, but in the sense of, will ever be 1989 Jackson again? No. We've got 70% of the city. I think that's a realistic number. 70% of the city is multiple lost generations due to multi-generational Democrat death culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's an understatement. I think there's probably 30% of the city is probably good folks who get up and go to work every day that don't live by the gun, die by the gun. But there's an entire sections of the city that are no-go zones. Massive parts of West Jackson, all of South Jackson
South Jackson.
From Highway 80, if we're going to call Highway 80 South Jackson, I think that's the definition of South Jackson. Highway 80 back south towards I-20 and on all the way down 55 to Elton Road. I think South Jackson is lost up to about Forest Hill Road.
Yeah, that's where my sister was murdered. Was in South Jackson, Methodist Home Road. I've never been over there. There was like an abandoned lumber yard or something where there have been multiple bodies found.
Yeah.
But I think of South Jackson, and that's all I can think of is just crime and murder and gangs and violence. And you and Therese actually did a show. It's been a little while now, maybe 2 years ago, but it was on the gangs.
Mhm.
I was shocked.
The
Hearing
gangs
y'all talk about the gangs was shocking to
The
me.
gangs run Jackson.
I had
Now,
no idea.
It's
I had
not your
no idea.
traditional, like, Boys in the Hood, Vice Lords, Crips, East Coast, West Coast type, red and blue, blue and black type gangs. I mean, they do have colors, don't get me wrong, but it's the culture in Jackson right now is very territorial. There's people who may never leave their neighborhoods, their little area of town. They don't leave there's imaginary borders, and they don't leave those, and those are gangs, and they refer to their enemies as their ops now. That's the thing that they call their enemies, their opposition, the ops.
Mm-hmm.
And they control Jackson, and South Jackson's controlled by this little young one that goes by the name the Taliban. And anybody that refers themselves as the Taliban is a piece of trash.
So there's like one person that calls himself that?
It's the whole gang.
The gang does. Okay.
A young black gang. I think half of them are gay. I mean, for what that's worth, I've just seen pictures of them, and there's dudes that think they're girls that think they're dudes. It's a really,
Lord have mercy.
It's a weird culture of the father being out of the home for multi-generations, and no male influence in these people's lives outside of hood superstars. And that's what's wrong with Jackson. And there's,
I'll tell you,
we've lost I say 2 generations at minimum. Generation Y and Z are done. I mean, I think they're just going to have to. Nobody likes to hear this, but they're going to have to kind of kill each other off, and we got to hope that we can prevent the youngest, the 4 and 5 year olds and younger. We're going to have to hope that we can turn something around and prevent. I don't think we can. I think it's lost.
Unless there's like a big changes, I can't see it happening.
Unless God decides to introduce himself to the situation and do something, I don't see how it's done. Generational poverty, which I don't like. I don't like poverty as an excuse, but it is an excuse for lack of opportunity. I'll say that. It's not an excuse for immorality.
Well, I'll say this. I think the most badass thing I've seen you do is when they put that billboard up in Pearl that said trans kids matter or trans lives matter.
Trans kids matter.
Trans kids matter. And then you said, oh, hell no. That's coming down, and I'm going to put up a Clay Edwards show billboard instead.
That was pretty cool.
That was incredible. And I thought, this is my people. This is who I want to be associated with, is someone who is going to say no to this nonsense, who is someone who is going to say, this will be a hill to die on. I'm not going to stand back and allow someone to tell me that I have to affirm the lie that you're telling yourself. So I applaud you for that move.
Yeah, like people riding by don't know the difference, right? But I had a picture of the before and the after, and it was I felt like it was a great deal to put my money where my mouth was. And
absolutely.
I was like, no, not only are we going to take that down, we're going to replace it with the antithesis of that. And
that was in Pearl.
And
that big, huge billboard in Pearl.
Right, ironically, the same spot I got stuck in traffic on the way here, right in front of Bass Pro Shop on I-20. It wasn't some back in the hidden billboard nowhere. It was a main billboard on I-20. But it just offended me that I had to see their agenda every day on the interstate. I'm like, I don't want to see that.
And I think that's when you and I started talking more about what I was finding in schools and what was being pushed into the education. It was becoming more indoctrination than education. And it infuriated you. When I first told you about furries, you thought I was full of crap. You didn't believe me. You laughed at me. I was like, no, I'm telling you, Clay, this is happening in schools. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember. The furries thing is funny because there's been that. My former stepdaughter went to Brandon, and she had told me about it too. And the principal of Brandon reached out and denies it. And I have a good relationship with him. I mean, he gets mad at me anytime I report on something from Brandon, but everybody does. Everybody loves talking about Jackson, but when I talk about Rankin County, the same people that love me get mad at me real quick.
But I've seen kids walking into Brandon high schools with their tails. And
well, there was the thing about apparently there was a kid that thinks they're a cat and they had their own litter box. And what he said was there's no litter box. So I'm like, what about a dress code? I mean,
Right. I mean, they've always said you can't dress up.
This nonsense?
There's no reason for it.
Send the kid home, and we shouldn't be entertaining this nonsense.
Right.
It's a distraction from the kids that aren't doing it, even if they think it's funny and they're getting their chuckles out of it. It's a distraction, and you're normalizing insanity.
Yeah.
We don't need to be normalizing insanity. I don't care what people do to an extent. I think some stuff needs to be regulated.
If you're an adult.
Yeah.
If you're an adult, and this is where, and I know you agree with me on this, but this is where my huge problem is with this new VP candidate for the Democrat Party. He has made it a safe haven to come to his state to take parental rights away from the parents if they won't conform to this nonsense. And I think that is the sickest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
And it's funny how they push him off as this all-American dad.
It's disgusting.
There's no such thing as an all-American dad that thinks there should be tampons in the boys' room. And he had the audacity. I can't think of a better word. He had the audacity during the DNC the other night to say, mind your own business. The same guy that set up a COVID snitch line for neighbors to call and snitch on their neighbors for being outside in their backyard had the audacity to tell other people to mind their own business.
The one who thinks it's okay to take children away from their parents because they don't want to affirm a lie, a mental illness.
Yeah.
It's insanity. I just can't even believe this is the world we're living in.
After the last 3 years, I've been putting 4 years, I've been putting hyperdrive. Going into COVID. Like, I just want to know, like, who hit the button on this trans stuff and said, this is everybody's hill to die on, anti or pro? And it's like, did it start with the girls in the men's restroom stuff, I guess, in North Carolina? Like, that's the first time I really remember the conversation on a national level.
I remember it was in Virginia, Loudoun County.
This predates that.
Oh, okay. That's the first time I remember it.
Yeah, this was just simply the bathroom stuff, and there had not been any rapes or anything like that in there yet. It was just they wanted to legalize it in North Carolina, and people raised hell. It turned into this big national thing, and it was just like after that, it became all gas, no brakes, and it's like you're not allowed. And on Twitter, they would kick you off, and it was Twitter for dead naming people. It's basically if
you couldn't say groomer. You definitely couldn't say groomer.
No, okay, groomer. They didn't like that.
Not at all.
No, that'd get you kicked off too. If you said anything that insulted a Democrat, you got kicked off. But the thing that killed me was if Lindsey decides to become Larry and I called you Lindsey, they would ban you and call it, it's called dead name. And they even came up with a name on it. Like, that's their dead name. You can't say that anymore. Like, who made that up? Who sat around and said dead naming?
We were literally talking, you and I were literally talking one day. And you said to me, you know how to really piss them off? Everything they say, just say, okay, groomer, and I will be danged. 5 minutes later, your account was gone. Yeah. And I remember you were getting your hair cut, and I was texting you, like, your account is gone. Where is it? Yeah. Because they had taken you off. Completely canceled you.
It's funny. I still have a decent-sized social media audience, but these are my second and third accounts across the board.
Yeah.
With the exception of Instagram. Instagram has somehow survived. And to me, that's the biggest crap show of all of them, but it has somehow survived. But Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, like when the original Save Jackson page and my personal page got deleted, that was a personal account that I had for 10 or 12 years. Mm-hmm. All the memories.
Yeah.
I enjoy Facebook memories for the most part. And I had the Save Jackson page, had about 50,000 followers at that point. It had all the original content, all the pictures, a lot of stuff I don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And I lost that. And that was, and they say it gives you like 30 days to back it up. It would never back up. I tried. It wouldn't do it. And it was one of the few times I got somebody in customer service in an email, in a live chat.
Oh, really?
And they were like, no, we're not going to let you have your account back. And what actually got the Facebook deleted was a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse holding that gun. And it was the day he was found innocent. And they were like, you can't do that. Well, why? Why can't I do that? He was just found innocent. It was terroristic.
Well, I mean, speaking of guns and gear, those guys are some of the greatest guys on the planet. I mean, I know Hunter Sarton has done incredible community service work. Anytime there's a disaster, he's on the front lines. And Facebook will not allow them to have a Facebook page. It just seems they're constantly shutting them down, even though they're not advocating for anything violent.
Yeah, I don't understand why something that's perfectly legal in America, they've completely disallowed it on social media. It's and maybe you could get me to take the gun argument half-ass serious if we were at least calling black on black mass shootings.
Yeah.
But it's only when it fits an agenda or a narrative that the left wants it to fit do we try to take guns, cancel guns, disallow guns, call it a mass shooting, any of that stuff. I was the first person the other day, and not to toot my own horn here, that called that Dylan Jackson a mass shooting at the Daiquiri Bar last week. They're just going to call it a shooting that 6 people got shot at. No, this is a mass shooting. I actually broke that story thanks to some cops I know. And it's aggravating when it's a different set of rules for a whole different set of people.
Right.
Change the topic slightly here, but
yeah,
I got off the radio the other day and I was just sitting there thinking about this mass shooting. And it really aggravates me that people in that community in Jackson will make excuses for the bottom feeders in their community.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that, I mean, you could say white culture, black culture, whatever. We don't do that in the
No, I've heard you call out white people just as much as you've called out.
We call out white trash quick and in a hurry. I'm not making excuses for them. I don't care about their poverty.
I've heard you start TikToks. Effing white people.
Effing white people, man. Stop that monkey crap. You're embarrassing us,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't understand why we keep making excuses for a group of people who are absolute savage animals or act like savage animals. Mm-hmm. And we just they just need a hug. To hell with them. They need to be locked up. We need to line them up against a damn stone wall.
You say they just need a hug. That's funny. It just made me think of the fact that there were these moms who came out and wore these T-shirts saying "free hugs." We'll give you a free hug if your parents don't want to affirm you. And so Moms for Liberty struck back and said, "Don't you dare hug my kids."
Yeah, don't touch my kids. Well, remember in Portland during COVID, the moms, there was a bunch of meth whores that locked arms in front of the federal courthouse in Portland when they were trying to burn it down during the George Floyd stuff. And they were like the moms of Antifa, moms of something. And it was just a bunch of angry cat ladies, childless cat ladies.
Like Kamala.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, she's not a mom. She's an angry cat lady. And the one kid that grew up around her is a tranny. She's a terror. Is that really an influence for young women that we need? She's a horrible individual.
Yeah, and that's what I said. You talked about this morning on your show about Tim Walls' son crying. And look, I love the fact that he's proud of his dad. I just wish he had a dad that was worth being proud of.
Yeah, I'm with you. And what's aggravating me about that is I see a lot of conservatives bickering with other conservatives, like trying to act holier than thou, like, oh my God, you said something. I can't believe you said something about Tim Wall's kid. Well, look, I'm not going to say nothing about his kid, but let the left argue with them if you don't like it. Mm-hmm. Let them argue it out. We don't need conservatives trying to show that they're above the fray by calling out other conservatives because you don't like what they said.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's plenty after the election, there's going to be a civil war in the conservative party, one way or another.
I agree.
Because you got the country club conservatives versus the MAGA conservatives.
Or the Barstool,
however you want to say it. And we ain't on the same page on a lot of stuff. We got a few things we're on the same page on, but generally speaking, we ain't on the same page. And we'll bring it back here locally. I made a video last night. Like Gene McGee out here in Ridgeland. I like Gene. I got a lot of respect for Gene. Mm-hmm. But they banned Kratom out here. Why are we banning things? I thought conservatism was small government.
We just ban books. I'm kidding. We don't do that either. That was a joke.
There should be restrictions on stuff. There should be restrictions on books. You shouldn't be able to go see pornographic books at a school library. Why is this a conversation? You say it out loud and it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'd have got kicked out of school in 1990 if I took a Playboy to school.
Clay, I quoted a quote from one of these books when I was on Mike Madison's show, and I thought he was going to kill me afterwards because he was like, "You can't say that on air. This is a family friendly." I'm like, third grade libraries, like third grade
I know
school libraries. Yeah, so yeah, it's ridiculous. It's insane.
Yeah, it's mind boggling to me that we have to have these conversations. And politically, we have a problem here in this country because when one side wins, they do nothing to try to bring the other side. Well, at least when the left wins, they do nothing to try to appease the right and say, hey, you know what? Let's pander a little. Give them assholes their wall. We'll just leave the door open, but give them the wall.
You know
Make
what
it
I thought
feel
was
like
hilarious was this week has been the DNC, and Tim Walz made the comment that if Trump is elected and he does build the wall, that he just wants to put a ladder up to get people over the wall. Well, when these Hamas protesters broke through the fence the other day, I wonder if he was thinking those same thoughts.
I was watching that in live time, just thinking to myself, walls don't work, but every time the Democrat National Committee or politicians feel threatened, they put a wall up around themselves.
Exactly.
Walls don't work, but man, they sure protect us.
Right.
It's funny. I don't know. I don't know what we do. I don't know what the expiration date is on this country, but we're running close. I mean, gotta be.
I
mean, I'm hoping I can just get my kid through it. I don't think it's going to happen.
You've got a good one.
I don't
You've
think
got
I'm
a
going
good
to get
one.
through it. Well, the kid's fine. We raise our kids the way we do, but I don't know if the people that are in charge, because if you look at it like this, look how long politicians, especially national ones, are holding on to these jobs. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi, look at Chuck Schumer, look at Benny Thompson, look at Michael Guest. I mean, he's locked in for the foreseeable future, I imagine, until somebody can come up and beat him. And those are just a few. And then who's that one from California that just died that was 100 years old? I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but
unfortunately, it wasn't Gavin.
90-something years old, a billionaire, and she didn't even have what's it called when somebody else can sign your name for
a will?
Power of attorney. Thank you. She didn't even have power of attorney for her own personal affairs, but she was still an elected official. Like she had to have a nurse to change her diaper. She couldn't hold her poop. But
wow. Well, I mean, I think that's been the last 4 years of America.
Yeah, it has. But it just goes to show. So my point with that is this current generation of Democrat politicians are nut jobs.
Yeah.
And the Republicans too, for that matter. How long are they going to hold? When is the next generation going to get the chance? Like they are holding us at bay. And I feel like America is turning, especially with the youth, with pop culture and media and music and everything. I feel like we're turning more and more and more left every day with the acceptance of left-wing policies. I've got gay friends. I never like making this about the gay stuff. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the gay marriage stuff was a slippery slope. And man, somebody put some KY jelly on it, and it has been hyperdrive coming down that thing since gay marriage. That's what we're supposed to accept as a society.
Right. And that's the case with so many things. Like, for example, before I got so involved, I was all for more gun laws. Like, let's make guns safer. Let's make background checks more extensive. Let's do all the things we need to do to make sure that someone that shouldn't have a gun doesn't have one. But when you start those red flag laws, it becomes such a slippery slope, and you just don't know where it's going to lead.
You don't. I've always said, they always talk about common sense gun laws. And what I've always just said is make where you can't have a private transfer without a background check. If you're going to convince me that there's such a thing as common sense, and I'm not talking about banning AR-15s, it'll just be another gun made. Mm-hmm. It does the same thing. The AR-15 is no secret weapon. It's just a semi-automatic rifle. There's other ones available that aren't called AR-15s that would still be available. I mean, I've got a gun that looks like an Uzi that I would much rather, if I was going to commit a mass crime, I would much rather use my CZ Scorpion than my AR-15. So Pandora's box, right? You open it up, then they start coming after you. I don't want to give them any ideas. Then they'll start banning everything. Right. But I've just always said, if you're going to do anything, you want to talk about common sense gun laws, cool, just make, if I'm going to sell my gun to Daniel, we should have to go out to Guns and Gear or anybody with a license, a federal license, run the background check, pay them $20-25 to do the transfer. Boom, that's it.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to do that. But if you're going to try to convince me that it's about safety and keeping guns out of the wrong people's hands, that would be a much easier sell than, no, it's just, we got to ban AR-15s and these red flag laws so a random neighbor can call because their neighbor has a Trump sign in the yard.
Yeah.
And say, they're making terroristic threats. I'm worried about them. And the next thing you know, they're taking your gun, or vice versa.
Exactly.
I mean, I have a Trump sign in my yard, but if my neighbor had a Biden sign, I'd probably call the cops on them. Like crazy people next door. I'm pretty sure I saw strange kids walking in.
They probably do have strange kids walking in if that's the sign they have in their yard.
I think we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out that Tim Walz probably touched some of those football players wrong when he was a coach.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I really do.
I wouldn't doubt
it. There's no way that you're into the things he's into, and you're not also pedophile.
Well, speaking of pedophiles, switching gears, I want to talk about the SAFER Act because I feel like we finally made a difference in something, and it showed. And so the SAFER Act it was something that I worked really hard on because I wanted those laws in Mississippi that said in public schools you have to use the restroom by your biological sex at birth, and that women should have safe places. Well, this bill made it all the way to the very end of session, was in conference, and was all of a sudden killed and dead by one of our House members who had told us he was going to support it. And you talked about it the next morning on your radio show. I called in. I ended up giving out his cell phone number, which some people didn't agree with. I don't regret it.
Nuclear option. Sometimes you have to go with the nuclear option. That was just like our previous conversation a minute ago. And I said, why are we even having to have this conversation out loud?
Mm-hmm.
Why in Mississippi is a super red state, or are we playing any of these
Why is it so difficult
games?
Why is it so difficult to get this into?
Which it just goes to show that Stephen Yatroska told me years ago. He's the first person I heard make the quote about if everybody's a Republican, nobody's a Republican. We're a purple state, according to nuclear politics. And I know, regardless of what people may or may not think of Stephen, man, he hit the nail on the head with that. And it showed. And the first time I truly, truly saw it was with Jody Hood and them playing games with that SAFER Act.
It was ridiculous.
I was like, we were a red state. It's supposed to be a super red state on paper, but we vote purple. Why do we do that? Why do we pander? Well, we pander because we got a bunch of fake white Republicans that had to run as Republicans. We got a bunch of fake white Democrats, a bunch of white liberals that ran as Republicans because they couldn't win as Democrats. And they didn't change. What is that? A leopard don't change its spots?
Exactly.
They didn't change their spots. They're still Democrats, and they're down there acting like it. And I don't know what this obsession with our damn kids is, but I guess it just goes back to they don't make kids, they take kids.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though. You came out and spoke on it. The Republican women came out and spoke on it. Fred Shanks did the impossible and brought it back to life. Celeste Hurst in the House, Josh Harkins in the Senate, and we got it done. Yeah. Thank goodness. Leslie Davis, who worked so hard on it.
Yeah.
But
I won't say who, but like one of the people down there, one of the females I bumped into somewhere not too long ago, and they were like, they're like, thank you for saying the things you said, because I accused him of being
you called him a pedophile. You called him a
pedophile.
Yeah,
pedophile. A pedophile. What is it? A pedophile sympathizer.
Pro-pedo.
Yeah, a pedophile sympathizer, and because there's no reason
it worked,
and it did, worked. And we all deserve credit for that. And it was the first time. You were talking the other night, and it's the first time that we truly made an impact. Well, people knew that it was us that made the difference, and it was all of us as a team effort, no one person.
Absolutely.
My three-legged dog analogy, we couldn't have done it without everybody, because if we had lost one leg, we'd have been face down.
Yeah.
It took y'all down there face to face harassing them. It took me on the radio. It took everybody that was doing it, and it showed that we can come together and get stuff done. But that's how we're going to have to start governing by proxy. Is and I don't think every time we don't get our way, but there's some things.
This was so important, not only because of the safe places and the bathrooms, but because it defined a woman. And the word woman is used in Mississippi Code more than 130 times. All of those laws were at stake here. Yeah. Every single one of them.
Yeah, and then it just opened up the door. If we can't agree that a man is a man and a woman is a woman, if we can't agree on that, we can't agree on nothing. We're not starting a conversation from a place of truthful honesty.
Yeah.
And if you can convince people that the most basic thing is a lie, you can convince them of anything.
Right. Exactly.
If your little kid thinks it's the opposite sex, smack the shit out of it if you have to. It's like, no, you're not. You're a boy. You are a boy. You're not a little girl, or vice versa.
You know, I've said this, I think, on the podcast before, but I came home the other day and my 4 and 7-year-old boys were playing in their girls play in my girls play makeup. And my first thought was absolutely not let me call and get an appointment to get their penises cut off. Like, who thinks that way?
I mean, it's a social contagion. I mean, like, look in California at all the famous people and the politicians out there. They've all magically got a trans kid like it's a trophy of some sort.
And the celebrities. I mean,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
All these celebrities and politicians all magically have a trans kid. That's not a coincidence.
No, it's not.
There's no way. And then in middle America, there's very few. I mean, I've actually had somebody that's trans reach out that's a Trump supporter and agreed with everything I said. And I guess that's where I had to put that caveat, right? That it's not about what you decide to do in your personal life as an adult. If you want to be trans and whatever as an adult, I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
Just leave the kids alone.
Leave the kids alone.
I don't know why is this a conversation? Leave the kids alone. I don't care what anybody's sexual preferences, sexual this, sexual that, whatever you want to do.
If you're an adult.
Do it, man. You know, if you want to dress up and be a sheep, a sheeple, or whatever, it don't matter. Rainbow butterflies, spit glitter at your butthole. I don't care what you do. I just do fairy dust. I mean, it's whatever. Yeah. I don't care. I prefer you stay away from me. Also,
right.
Want me in with them kids and stay away from me, but
I'm not going to play into your mind games. I'm not going to affirm your lies.
Yeah, I'm not going to do any of that. So I don't have the time for it. We have so much other important things, and we're wasting our time with this culture war stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
But it's important.
I'm going to fight it, because if you don't fight it, you end up in the situation we're in where it's just acceptable nonsense.
Yeah.
And that's what got us into this situation, is conservatives biting their tongues and not saying anything, and just letting it go. And like, finally, when you decide to tap the brakes a little bit, people freak out.
Mm-hmm.
So I said it last week, and I know we got to wind down here.
Yeah.
I said it last week. We've let one side dictate the terms for far too long. And now we're having to play by their rules. I don't like these rules of engagement we're having to play by right now. I'd rather this be an easier conversation. I had to be a bull in the china shop about everything, but these are the rules they set forward. This cancel culture stuff, all this, these are their rules.
But speaking of cancel culture, and I want to hit on this real quick. I know we do have to wrap up, but I want to talk about the transformation that you've made. I mean, there are people who have tried to cancel you. You've talked to an extent on the radio about your past, about drug addiction, about recovery, about being in the nightclub industry, being a car salesman, and now you've kind of become this voice in Mississippi in politics and in just the culture wars. But you've made an incredible, even physical transformation. What do you attribute that to, Clay?
You just got to want it, man. The physical transformation, I can here lately, I'll just attest to, there's no greater steroid than a breakup you didn't want to go through.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's anybody, right? It's like, I will show her.
And by the way, she's not the one that put the podcast equipment in the bathtub.
No, that's the ex-wife. The ex-wife sunk all the equipment, and I did get it to all work again, thankfully. No, it was a what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't a bad breakup. It was just one I chose. But I'd prefer not going through.
I laughed so hard the other day when you posted your before and after pictures, and then you made that comment about how you had lost 2 good pairs of breasts in the last
Oh yes, I was wondering if I caught that.
I caught it.
Somebody said you lost a nice set of tits or whatever. It's like the second pair I've lost this month, but the physical transformation, you just got to set your mind to it, and the same with social transformation. Professional transformation. I thought forever people would just always associate me with being the drugged out nightclub guy and all that, and then I became the car sales guy, and I thought I'll never shake this off, and then I got into doing this, and who knows if this lasts forever. I'm getting kind of late in the game.
I hear you have a new Monday co-host or something.
So. Oh yeah. I actually meant to start the show with that. So starting Mondays, Lindsey's going to be co-hosting my show with me, and we may come up with a fancy name for it. I don't know. If not, it's just going to be Clay and Lindsey, and we're gonna hit the culture war stuff and what's happening in live time. And we're not going to repeat every conversation, but Lindsey's going to be on, and I think she brings a lot to the table, and hopefully we can send more people to watching this and to your podcast and everything else. So I think it's a win-win. I think it gives you a platform and a voice, and people extended theirs to me. on my come up, and I think it's important to do the same. When Kim Wade helped me out, the promise I had to make him was I would pay it forward and help the next person out. And I'm trying to do that every day.
You've done that. You've absolutely done that. You've been a huge supporter and have always let me use your show as a microphone for my issues that I care about. And I am so appreciative. I mean, even sponsoring the podcast and being the one who called me and said, "Hey, I have a great idea. I think you should do this. I think that this would be something really good and you could get your message out." And so, I mean, I do call you one of my best friends, and I am very thankful for all you've done, not just for me, but for the entire community. Like, you making a point to get these issues out and let people know what's really going on. I appreciate you so much, Clay.
I appreciate it. It's been fun, and I like to feel like I'm helping out. And I know people want opportunities, and sometimes the opportunity you want is it's a longer path to it. And I know you want to be on radio, but I think that the best way to learn how to do radio is like this, and then work your way to radio. You will force your way into opportunities if you're successful.
Yeah,
like people won't be able to deny you, and that's how what I said. I was like, I'm going to force myself into every opportunity I can, and nobody's going to deny me. I'll create it myself, one way or another, and that's what I try to do every day. Like now, radio's always the mothership for all this stuff, even though it started on social media and all that. But it's like now I'm really want to be on the top of the top dog on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, and I think getting the show on YouTube with some camera, neither here nor there, find what you want and focus on it and do it, and just do it every day. I mean, I hate to sound like a football coach here, but you can't
not
win
like
the
Tim
year.
Walls. You're not like one of those.
You can't win the year if you don't win the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start win more days than you lose, and you may have a bad day. Like Daniel does a lot of stuff on the recovery stuff, and I think he'll tell you this. You may be sober for 100 days, and you may trip up one day. Well, that's just one day. Don't let the streak define your sobriety. You just had a bad day. Now you're going to be sober 101 out of 102 days.
And if you do have a bad day and get a DUI, you can call Sean Yerkeron, the Yerkeron Law Firm. Look how I did that.
Call Sean Yerkeron. If you have a bad day, you fall off the wagon, whatever. But to the same thing goes to putting in the effort. Do something to try to get a little better every day. Whether it's the gym, it's 1%. 1%. Shoot for 1%, man. Just try to be better. And I've lost years. Like there's been years that I didn't get better, but I didn't fall backwards either. And then when I decided to get that recharge, move forward, I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. Hoping every day is going to be better. So back to doing other people's podcasts and shows and trying to grow. I don't know if the radio's hit a ceiling or not. But we're going to.
No, I don't think so. Because you texted me yesterday and said, "What is the best? Your show is the best numbers of any show you've done."
Oh yeah. So
how do you not remember that? That was yesterday.
Gosh, man, so much comes at
me. But that's a huge accomplishment.
It's fun. I try not to get too caught up. You enjoy it for the day, and then the next day, rent's due again.
Yeah.
So it's easy to forget when you got to pay rent again every day. And I think that's life, whether it's in a relationship or it's work. Rent's due every day. Don't get complacent with your success. Don't get the girl and get comfortable. Always treat them like the pursuit is never ending. Same with the guy, and same with your job.
Yeah.
Same with whatever.
Don't throw their podcast equipment in the back.
I mean, look at Tom Brady. We'll end it on this. Look at Tom Brady. I mean, that dude won 7 Super Bowls. He could have won one, and like, I'm a legend.
Right.
He's like every day wanted to be better than the day before. Every year wanted to be better than the year before. And take advantage. Watch that. Look at those. Look at the greats and see what they do. And it's taken me to my mid 40s to figure out the amount of effort it actually takes to be successful, and that nobody owes you nothing. Work harder, nobody cares. I think people do care. I think people want to hear. People they don't want to hear until you've proven that you can be successful. I don't want to hear how to lose weight from a fat guy.
Right. Exactly.
I don't want to hear about success from a broke guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's not always about money. Success is different stuff, but I want to be able to tell my story from a place of victory.
I love that.
Like if it's about losing weight, I want to be able to look at me and say, Clay lost 100 pounds in the last couple of years. If it's the radio show and Clay's the #1 morning show in town.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And speaking of your morning show, you do have a co-host 2 days a week.
On Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yes. And so he's an attorney. And how would you tell people Why should people call
If
Sean?
you want to stay your ass out of jail and you done effed around and found out, call Sean Yerkaran. He's getting murder raps thrown out before they even go to trial. He's an assistant DA for 10 years. He's been on the other side throwing people in jail for a long time. He knows how the DAs think. He knows what to do to get you out. And he's got the relationships. And people might not like to hear this, but a lot of times keeping your butt out of jail and getting your case plea bargains, all that is about relationships.
It is. And where you and I are probably so far right that there are a lot of, he's got that middle ground with people. So he's such a calm voice and a voice of reason when it comes to cases like that. So I think he's kind of found his element there.
I'm really proud of him after, and he got burned out and took 3, 4, 5 years off from practicing law or something like that. And got back into it in the last year and just jumped back in head first. And he's been more successful than I think he thought he was going to be. And
right.
Sometimes you can get burned out. Sometimes like the old Cinderella song, don't know what you got till it's gone.
Exactly.
Sometimes you need to take a break from something to realize that you miss it.
Yeah, he said he was going to take the afternoon off, and then he said he was headed to the jail. He forgot he had to go meet somebody at the jail today. So he's staying super busy. But, he always says, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. So if you need legal help.
I ran into the sheriff at Martin's. I went to Martin's with Fred today and ran into the sheriff, and he was like, where's your cohort at? I was like, probably heading out to your jail to get somebody out of it.
He probably was.
No, I was right. All right, Lindsey, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. And y'all definitely follow Clay, Save Jackson.
Save JXN.
Save JXN. And WYAB, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, especially on Mondays. And then Wednesdays and Fridays with Sean co-hosting with you. So, look, I just appreciate you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me for a little while and share your story.
Yeah, let's do it again. And we got some other topics we can hit that ain't always got to be political.
Absolutely.
Daniel, thank you.
Yeah.